Because you see, the church needs servants because the church is to reflect Jesus Christ. He is the head of the church. And Jesus said, the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. You see, in serving, no matter how menial it is, I'll change that. Especially how menial it is. Especially when it's that stuff that nobody really knows about. You aren't appointed to be, well, we have the ministry of toilets, and the pastor of toilets is, and assign some title. People come and ask us, why don't you have deacons in the church, Pastor? Isn't that biblical? As a matter of fact, we just read about them right here in Acts chapter 6. Why don't you have deacons? Well, actually, within our bylaws, we have rules for deacons should we choose to appoint them. But you know what I found? I found that many times, as soon as people get any kind of title, man, things get different. This is our deacon of the bathroom ministry. Hey, I'm a deacon now, man. Got to treat me differently. I'm the deacon of this. There's a whole possession of this thing, and it gets weird sometimes. And it's because of our sinful nature. It's one of the reasons, don't ever call me Reverend Kevin. Unless you want to call me Rev Kev. That's what the youth group used to call me years ago when we did that. It's kind of a joke. But Pastor Kevin, or just Kevin. That's okay too. I don't need that title, because all that title of pastor says to me is, you better be about your Father's business, because you are going to stand before God, and He's going to say, okay, this is what you did in your life. And what about all the lives of all the people that I sent to Calvary Chapel, Pittsburgh? What'd you do there, Kev? And so we have many deacons in this church. They just don't have a title or a certificate or anything like that. But instead, they are serving God in that way. Now, back in Ezra, I was kind of wondering, well, why weren't there any Levites? I mean, you got 50,000 people. What are the odds of gathering 50,000 people together and you don't have any Levites there? It's pretty low, I think. I think there's a reason they weren't coming. And I think the reason was they had it pretty good in Babylon. You see, we talk about the Babylonian captivity. And actually, the Babylonian captivity, other than the destruction of Jerusalem and the being carried away, once they were carried away and settled in Babylon, it actually wasn't too bad. And the Lord told them, hey, do business. Just, I'm going to send you back, but I want you to be strong and healthy here. And the archaeological records and so forth that we can find all say, they did pretty well in Babylon. And so, for the same reason that only 50,000 of the many who were in Babylon went back to Jerusalem, you know what? The Levites are going, I got it pretty good here. I don't have to clean up anything except my own house here in Babylon. There's no temple to have to worry about rubbing that grill, taking care of all that stuff. I've got a you know what? I think I'm just going to stay here. I think I'll let someone else do it. And that's what the church in America has become in so many places. It's become, I'm going to let somebody. That's what we hire a pastor for. That's what we hire a custodian for. That's what we appoint Sunday school teachers for. That's what we have a board of trustees for. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody else does it. I go and I sit and I receive. That's what I go to church for. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel better about myself. I feel better about myself when I go to church. So I go to church. We sing great songs. Pastor talks. Tells me I'm saved. It's awesome. I love it. I feel good after that. I'm ready to go through the week. I don't know what happens over the week, during the week, but I do know every time I go in, well, the place is pretty clean. There's new stuff there. Things are taken care of. You see, we've become, Greg Laurie talks about this in his book, The Upside Down Church. Great book. Recommend it. I think it might be in the library back there, is it? Yeah. Great book, The Upside Down Church. And he says, what's happened in America is we have become consumers instead of communers. We are to be gathering together to commune with each other and the Lord. And to be built together as a holy habitation for the Lord, with every part doing its work, doing its ministry, doing what the Lord has called, and doing whatever needs to be done. But instead we've become consumers. We pick a church by these criteria. Well, it's got to have this, 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 and this. Okay, I grade this one a B+. Might go there. Because we are a consumer society. We think in terms of, what is that church giving me? And that's not the design of the church. That's not the design of the church. Now, please don't read into what I just said some whip against you because not enough of you are volunteering for stuff. It's not it. We're reading the Scriptures. And this is the truth of the way God has designed the church. And I praise God for every person here who is giving of their time, talent, and treasure to be part of the community of faith here called Calvary Chapel. And I pray that more would do it. Not because we're in great need. The Lord provides. But I think about, wow, Lord, what more could we do? How could we greater expand our borders for your glory and to reach more people with the gospel of Jesus Christ? If more people got the vision of, yeah, it's not about me joining a club that takes care of me and I get a discount on good spiritual stuff, like the Costco of, Christianity or something. But rather, this is my opportunity to give and to do the things that God has called me to do. God's called me to do this, and now here's an opportunity to channel that and let it go forward in the Lord. That's what it's about. We need servants in the church. We need servants. Back to the book of Ezra, verse 21. He says, "Then I proclaimed a fast there at the river Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our God, to seek from him the right way for us and our little ones and all our possessions. For I was ashamed to request of the king an escort of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy on the road, because we had spoken to the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon all those for good who seek him, but his power and his wrath are against all those who forsake him. So we fasted and entreated our God for this, and he answered our prayer." I love this. I love this. Here's Ezra, this guy who's dedicated to seeking the Lord and doing it and teaching others and everything else. And he goes, well, we had to fast and pray because I was too ashamed to ask the king for an army. Because I realized we told him the Lord's going to take care of us. We said, the Lord will protect us. He protects those who are going after his good. So we're going to be all right, king. And now they're all gathered together. They've pulled all their stuff together. They've got tens of millions of dollars worth of silver, gold, and other stuff with them. And they're not an army. They're just a bunch of people. And now I can imagine Ezra kind of going, wow, it'd be really cool to have some guys on camels or horses or chariots, like going alongside of us, keep the robbers away. And he says, but I was ashamed to go ask for that because I had said to this guy, hey, the Lord's going to take care of it. The road back to Jerusalem was dangerous. I think it's 14 or so years later when Nehemiah goes, he goes with soldiers. And that's not because Nehemiah is less spiritual or anything. Different time, different circumstances. But the road to Jerusalem was dangerous. He'd spoken to the king saying that the Lord would protect him. And he couldn't go back on it. That's where his heart and his mind was. Because, well, it would water down his testimony, right? He told the king, hey, the Lord's going to protect us. And then he comes back later and goes, and he's going to protect us through your army, if you'll give them to us. But it's more than that. You know, it used to kind of bug me when people would say, well, Pastor, you shouldn't do that because that's going to blow your testimony.